You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for downloading another episode of the CherryPickin podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cherry, and I'm here to greet you for season 7 of the show. Can you believe that we are already in 7 seasons of the CherryPickin podcast? Thank you if you've been a day one listener. Thank you if you're listening to this podcast for the first time. I appreciate it, and I am looking forward to this season. It's going to be a fun season. It's going to look a lot different because there's new teams and new conferences. It's going to be a heck of a season, and this episode will get us ready for the season to come. And this college football season, like I said, it's going to look a lot different this season. It's going to look a lot different than the seasons that came before it. Conference realignment has eroded the natural boundaries for many teams, including those that will be playing in new Power 5 conferences this season. If you need a quick refresher for who's playing where this season, let me help you out. The ACC added Cal, Stanford, and SMU. The Big 12 added Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah. The Big 10 added Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington. The SEC added Oklahoma and Texas, which means the Pac-12 was the big loser in conference realignment this year. It lost 10 of its former members to the ACC, Big 12, and Big 10. As of now, Oregon State and Washington State are the only 2 teams remaining in the Pac-12 and will most likely need to find a new home soon. The intent of this episode is to look at each of the teams playing in a new conference this season and provide my thoughts on how I think they'll fare against their new opponents in 2024. Do I think any of these new teams have a legitimate shot making it to their respective conference championship games this season? Stay tuned at the end of the podcast and you'll know the answer to that. First, we'll take a look at the new additions to the ACC. The ACC added Cal, Stanford, and SMU. The ACC has the same 17 schools heading into the 2024 season, and Notre Dame still has a 5-game arrangement with the conference. The ACC eliminated divisions for play last season, and they'll play 8 conference games. The top 2 teams in the standings will play in the ACC championship game. So, Cal, a new addition to the conference. They went 6-7 in 2023. Cal has a tough schedule this season. On the road at Auburn in week 2 for non-conference play, followed by a trip to Tallahassee on September 21st. The Golden Bears have a bye and then face Miami at home before having to travel to Pittsburgh, followed by NC State coming into town the following week. I really feel for all these former Pac-12 teams having to fly across country to play in the ACC week in and week out. It doesn't really make sense from a geographic standpoint, but money talks. That travel schedule will have a real effect on the players, and I'm curious to see if the quality of the games will suffer as a result. I think Cal has a shot to win 5 games, 6 games at the most this season. Another new opponent in the ACC is Stanford. They went 3-9 in 2023 in the Pac-12. Stanford may have one of the most difficult schedules this upcoming season. The Cardinal goes on the road with stops at Clemson, Notre Dame, and NC State. It has the benefit of facing Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, and Louisville at home, but that still is a pretty brutal initiation into the conference, facing all of those juggernauts this season. And while Stanford welcomes back most of its last year's starters, they still need to find a way to win together in a new conference home. Most of last season's losses were pretty lopsided in favor of whoever the opponent was. Granted, Troy Taylor was in his first season at the helm in 2023, but he should have a better grasp of things in year 2, but it still won't be an easy transition into the ACC. I think 5 wins is the ceiling for Stanford in 2024. And then the last new team in the ACC, SMU, they went 11-3 last season. The Mustangs have a lot of experience returning back to Dallas this season after coming off a championship season in the AAC. SMU's schedule looks pretty favorable considering that they are playing in the Power 5 this season. That's a jump up from the Group of 5 to the Power 5, but I think SMU will be able to handle things well. The Mustangs host Florida State at home on September 28th, followed by a road trip to Louisville on October 5th. And outside of those teams, I'm not really scared of anyone else in the conference play next season if I'm a Mustang fan. Missing from the schedule next season are Clemson, NC State, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina. So those are some big powerhouse players in the ACC, and to not have to play them this season is definitely going to benefit SMU. SMU, in my estimation, has a real path to the ACC championship game this season, which would be a tremendous feat if they can pull that off. Their schedule is favorable. They don't face many of the tough opponents from the ACC, so whoever wrote their schedule did them a favor. SMU has a shot to really make it to the championship game this season. Now, if we look at the Big 12, the Big 12 will have 16 schools for the 2024 season. The Big 12 had 10 schools in 2022. The conference added BYU, Cincy, Houston, and UCF for the 2023 season. They lost Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC in 2024, and we'll get to them later on. They add Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah to the Big 12 conference this season. The conference will not have any divisions, and they will play 9 conference games this season. The conference championship game will feature the top 2 teams at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. So the new teams in the Big 12 for this season, we've got Arizona, who went 10-3 last season. And I'm really going to keep my eyes glued to the Arizona team this season. It'll be head coach Brett Brennan's first season at the helm after coming from San Jose State. He'll benefit from having 15 returning starters this season, including his quarterback and top wide receiver. I don't think they'll hit 10 wins this season, but they should be able to go bowling. I am concerned with matchups the Wildcats have on the road at Kansas State on September 13th, followed by a stop at Utah on September 28th, and then BYU, UCF, and TCU at various points this season. It's not going to be easy, but I think Arizona can remain competitive in the Big 12, and they will be one of the teams to watch this season, mark my words. Then we've got Arizona State, who went 3-9 last season. Arizona State has a tough schedule, and with only 10 returning starters, I do wonder if the Sun Devils have enough to be able to compete week in and week out at a high level. The toughest stretch will come in the beginning of the season. Arizona State hosts Mississippi State on September 3rd for non-conference play, followed by back-to-back trips to the state of Texas in the subsequent weeks to play Texas State and Texas Tech. The final few games of the season won't be easy either, on the road to Oklahoma State, followed by UCF, and then a trip to Kansas State. Man, that is going to be tough. ASU went 3-9 last season. I wouldn't be surprised if they went 3-9 this season. And then we've got Colorado. Colorado Buffaloes, they went 4-8 in 2023. I watched way more Colorado games last season than I had previously at any other point in my life. And that's the Deion Sanders effect. The dude is must-see TV. And for moments early on last season, his team was fun to watch. Everyone loves an underdog, and for the first 3 games of last season, the Buffaloes were 3-0 and had toppled a TCU team that had been to the national championship game the year prior. They were ranked that season. Everybody was watching Colorado. And even if you weren't a Buffs fan, you have to admit Colorado was a team that you'd be checking to see how their games went each week. But then reality set in, and it all came crashing down. Deion's kids went 1-7 after going 3-0 the first 3 weeks. And not all of the games they lost were blowouts, but I think they suffered from poor coaching and an inability to finish games. And that's on Deion. The players have responsibility in that, but that's also on Deion and his coaching staff. Now, I want to see if Colorado has it in them to get better each week. Finish games. I guarantee if they do that, they'll go to a bowl game this season, which would be miraculous for both the head coach and a program that hasn't gone to a bowl game since 2020. Colorado has the talent to compete in the Big 12, so they shouldn't be afraid of anyone on their schedule, if I'm being real. But they've got to put it all together, and I would love to see Deion shut his haters up once and for all, and I'm looking at you, Danny Cannell. So if Colorado can do what they need to do each week, finish games, play hard, play tough, keep that mentality of being a winner and being the best and the greatest, they will go to a bowl game next season in their first season back to the Big 12. Then we've got Utah, who went 8-5 in 2023. Utah has a tough travel schedule now that they're in the Big 12. Trips to states like Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, Florida, that will wear on a person. It really does. However, with that being said, I don't think their schedule is impossible. Kyle Whittingham returns for his 20th season as head coach, which is mind-blowing. He's literally the third longest tenured coach in football today, right there with Mike Gundy and right behind Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. Whittingham has been the coach ever since Urban Meyer left to accept the head coaching job at Florida, if that makes you feel old at all. And that was back in 2004, which is crazy. I was in high school still. I'm almost 40 now. I'm a grown man. I'm 40, almost. Anyway, Utah is an experienced team and is fortunate to get the services of quarterback Cameron Rising, who returns after being sidelined all last season. The guy is a stud playmaker, and he was a former Heisman watch list candidate a few seasons ago. I think Utah can run its schedule, but I'm circling its matchup against Oklahoma State on September 21st. I think that'll be the biggest test for the Utes in their new home in the Big 12 this season. Well, there we have it, my friends. We're going to take a short break. We already talked about the Big 12 conference. We talked about the ACC. On the other side of this break, we'll get into the new teams in the Big 10, and then we'll also talk about Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. So don't go anywhere. The Cherry Pickin' Podcast will be right back after a short break.
Want to know what life is really like after the game is all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UniWatch Holiday Gift Guide, short courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the Big Ten. The Big Ten will have 18 teams in 2024. Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington are leaving the Pac-12 to join the Big Ten Conference this year. The Big Ten will not have any divisions this season. The conference will continue to play 9 Big Ten games, and the top 2 teams will meet in the Big Ten championship game. The first team that we'll talk about here in the Big Ten as a new addition is Oregon. The Ducks went 12-2 in 2023. The Ducks have a very favorable Big Ten schedule this season. Dan Lanning is entering his third year in Eugene as the head coach, and he is coming off his best season yet, in which the Ducks went 12-2 and made an appearance in the Pac-12 title game. The first real test for the Ducks doesn't come until October 12th, when Oregon hosts Ohio State, the Ohio State University. The Ducks do travel to Michigan on November 2nd, but I'm expecting the Wolverines to come back down to reality this season. Oregon's final 2 games come on the road at Camp Randall before hosting the Washington Huskies on November 30th. I'm excited to see how Oregon's brand of football translates into Big Ten play. The Ducks had a scoring defense in the top 10 in FBS, with an offense that scored the second most points per game in the country at 44.2 points per game. They lose some firepower on offense, most notably stud quarterback Bo Nix, but I think the Ducks can hang in there with the Ohio States of the world this season, And I honestly think they'll be a team to watch and a team that will compete in the Big Ten this season. Then we've got UCLA, who went 8-5 in 2023. I'm rooting for first-year head coach Deshaun Foster, who returns home to UCLA to coach his Bruins after Chip Kelly decided to bounce out to become the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Okay. I truly wish Deshaun Foster luck. This season is going to be tough. The Bruins travel to LSU on September 21st for non-conference play, followed by a home contest against Oregon. Then the Bruins go on the road to Penn State the following week. Sheesh. I would love to see how those Cali kids handle the hostile environment of Happy Valley, which may be a whiteout game for all we know at this point. And that should be a fun game to watch, honestly. I would love to watch that game. UCLA also has a road trip to Nebraska, which I feel like the Cornhuskers will be a much improved team under Matt Rule's second season there. So I'm expecting some improvement for the Cornhuskers because Lincoln is not an easy environment to play in either. And then immediately after that game, UCLA hosts Iowa. So I think it'll be a miracle if UCLA gets to bowl eligibility this upcoming season. I truly do. Then we've got USC, who went 8-5 in 2023. USC loses a lot of offense this season, including superstar quarterback Caleb Williams, who is now on my Chicago Bears. Thank you very much. But also its top two rushers and receivers. It will be a rebuilding year of sorts for head coach Lincoln Riley, who is now entering his third season in Los Angeles. The Trojans open the season against LSU for non-conference play, but then travel to Michigan on September 21st. However, USC hosts Wisconsin, Penn State, and Nebraska, who, like I said, should be an improved team. So it's not an easy schedule, but the Trojans do luck out getting Wisconsin and Penn State at home this season. I'd set the over-under at 7 wins this season for USC. Then our final team that's a new addition to the Big Ten this season is Washington, who went 14-1 in 2023. If you're a Washington Huskies fan, I am so sorry. Next season is going to be absolutely brutal. Washington lost a ton of starters. I don't think it's as bad as LSU after they won the college football championship a few years ago and lost like literally everybody the following season. But it's going to be bad this season, which is a shame because on paper, I don't think they have a brutal Big Ten schedule. But when your quarterback, top rusher, top receiver are all gone to the NFL, it sure makes your life in a new conference a lot tougher. No favors were made for Washington in making the Huskies having to travel to Iowa, Penn State, and Oregon before the end of this season. Washington went 14-1 last season and made it to the college football championship last season. Well, they'll be lucky if they're able to get 4 wins this season, if I'm being truthful. Now, if we look at the SEC will have 16 teams in 2024. Oklahoma and Texas are joining the conference this season. The SEC will not have any divisions in 2024. Teams will play 8 conference games, with the top 2 teams meeting in the SEC championship game in Atlanta at the end of the season. Oklahoma went 10-3 in 2023. Oklahoma did not get any favors pulled this season. The Sooners' schedule is tough, but it's not to say OU can't rise to the challenge. First real test will come on September 21st against Tennessee at home, followed by a trip to Auburn the following week. A much-needed bye week arrives before the Sooners hit the road to Texas, Ole Miss, and Missouri in subsequent weeks. Oklahoma gets the pleasure of facing a new-look Alabama team in the second to last week of the season before ending things with a trip to Baton Rouge. Honestly, if Oklahoma can win 8 games this year, I think that's a really good start for Brett Venables and the Sooners in their new home in the SEC. I think both Oklahoma and Texas will be humbled a bit by the speed of the SEC in comparison to the Big 12 and the level of physicality in which the SEC teams bring on defense. Because I felt like in seasons prior, the Big 12 was great at putting up offense, but they weren't really good at defense. And you're playing the SEC, arguably one of the best conferences out there. They play a tough brand of football, offense and defense. So Oklahoma's really going to have to step up if they expect to be able to be successful in their new home. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was in the Big 12, but it's not to say they can't succeed. They can recruit really well. They're well coached, and it may just take a matter of time. It may take some seasons for them to really get comfortable, but I think Oklahoma can be successful, but next season will really humble them. And if they can get to 8 wins, I mean, that's a huge win for Oklahoma in its first season in the SEC. Then if we look at Texas, who went 12-2 in 2023, Texas will fare well in the SEC this season. I think they'll do better than the Sooners, for sure. Its schedule is favorable and does not include Alabama, LSU, or Ole Miss. Oklahoma will be a tough matchup in the Red River Showdown, but the first real conference test comes on October 19th against Georgia at home. If the Longhorns can hold it together and beat Georgia, I think they can win out the rest of the way. And that's not to say they won't face tough competition, especially on November 23rd against Kentucky at home, but the Longhorns are deep and are well coached. The team is ready for this moment to play in the SEC and get back on to the college football playoffs and be a national player again. The game against Texas A&M on November 30th will also be must-see TV as the former Big 12 rivals finally meet again as SEC rivals. A&M thought that they finally got away from Texas, but not so fast. These two teams will be meeting again for the first time since 2011 in a matchup that ended up being a thriller in which Texas got the last laugh over little brother Texas A&M, beating the Aggies 27-25 on a 40-yard field goal as time expired. So that is going to be must-see TV. That'll probably be a primetime game if I'm a betting man. Well, there we have it, folks. Those are the teams that will be playing in new conference homes this season. Do you agree with my individual team outlook for this season? Let me know. Drop me a line on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. It's been interesting to see how college football realignment has changed the game, and while things have settled down right now, I'm confident that this is not the end of the shuffling. Rumors are Florida State and Clemson may both be looking to depart the ACC, which would be sad for folks like me who love the conference, but it seems like the name of the game is money and TV rights, and these schools want a bigger share of the cut. Will we have 2 super conferences by the end of this? Who knows exactly? All I know for certain is that you should be prepared for the unexpected. Thanks for listening to my podcast, and I look forward to dropping more content for you all to listen to and enjoy fairly soon here. Take care, everybody. Hope you have a good one. Peace. Whittingham has been the coach ever since Urban Meyer left to accept the head coaching job at Florida, if that makes you feel old at all. And that was back in 2004, which is crazy. I was in high school still. I'm almost 40 now. I'm a grown man. I'm 40, almost. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.